Welcome back to the Piping Pastor. I have returned after a wee bit of travel. I was in Tucson for the last 5-6 days doing some teaching. So, not one of my long wilderness treks. This was just doing a few classes in Tucson. And while I was there, hotel I checked into, after I checked in, it was a lovely little place and had a really brilliant little courtyard with a fountain. I was like, oh, this is going to be a awesome little patio area to sit in the evenings and have a pipe. And I look around, there's like no smoking signs everywhere. The entire property was non-smoking. So I go to the front desk and I'm like, oh, I see this is a totally non-smoking property. Where can I go to smoke my pipe? And the lady said, well, there's some gates outside the parking lot and there's benches out there. I was like, oh, lovely. A bench in a parking lot. That sounds aesthetic. But I went out there to look anyway, and lo and behold, no benches. So I thought, okay, well, I guess I just won't have a pipe for the next 5-6 days because I'm not just going to stand in the parking lot with a pipe. It detracts from a lot of the experience. And then happily, I noticed across the street, a cigar lounge. So neat little place in a strip mall. It's called Anthony's Cigars, run by a rather nice chap named Alex. And they do have a fair bit of pipe tobacco and a nice little smoking lounge area. So no membership fee, nice group of people there enjoying pipes and cigars, mainly cigars. The pipe smokers as usual are, the oppressed minority. But in any case, so, I blessed the house, of course, because I didn't want to just go in there and sit and smoke for a few days and not, contribute. And happily, they have some nice tobaccos, some nice pipe tobaccos there. Despite the manager's, I wouldn't say dislike of pipe smokers. I would say minor annoyance at, which I'll get into in a second. But they have several bulk tobaccos, and they're all Cornell and Deal. So none of the cheap, cherry wine, generic, burley, stuff that typically you find in cigar shops that don't really cater to pipe smokers. There's some really nice bulk blends, and then a very wide array of 10 tobaccos as well, decently priced. They didn't mark up, 100%. And I was happy to find Briar Works tobacco. So for those of you who never had Briar Works tobacco, it comes helpfully packaged already in a mason jar or a ball canning jar. So that's what I'm smoking today, which is Smokehouse. It's one of their English blends, and very lovely blend. It's Latakia and Orientals and Virginias and Darkfire Kentucky. I was pleasantly surprised at the taste because the tin note in it is all dark fired. When you pop that tin open and take the first smell, it's all barbecue. And it's strong. And I thought, okay, well, this is going to be one of those blends where the dark fire is just, driving the bus and everyone else is, huddled in the back. But it's really well balanced. Yes, the tin note is very strong dark fired, and the dark fire taste is there, and it is in front, but still a nice light smoky sweetness to it that trails off. And so I'm really rather enjoying it. Comes in a flake, and it's been a nice blend. So I was happy that they had that, and of course happy that they have it in the jars. Briar Works is where the Muletown Pipe Show is held. For those of you who have not been, and it's a great place. Columbia, Tennessee is a lovely little town. There's a really nice coffee shop right up the road from the Briar Works, and a little ice cream place. A lot of antique stores around there. It's just a cool little community. And the Briar Works itself is a great smoking lounge, and the folks that run it are they're top notch. So if you have an opportunity to make it to Muletown, you should. I probably won't go this year because it's a bit further where I am now in El Paso to Tennessee. So we'll see. Something may change, but as of right now, I probably will not make it. However, I got the tobacco. So to get back to where I said he was minorly annoyed by pipe smokers. And in fairness, I don't think it's just a general thing. I think this was a one-off kind of a deal. But he's definitely a cigar guy, and the majority of the people there are cigar people. I saw one other pipe smoker there, and he was smoking peaches and cream. And he noted the fact that I was smoking in English, and he's like, "That smells a lot different than what I normally smell." So I think the small amount of pipe smokers he does have come in are probably more aromatic people. So being a cigar smoker, that probably taints his view. I would say, thinking that we're all like smoking desserts. But in any case, the bulk tobaccos, as I mentioned, they're all Cornell and Deal. And there was a fellow who came in to get some pipe tobacco, and I kind of overheard the conversation. And this guy was obviously new to pipe smoking, and I thought about interjecting myself, but they were having an interaction, and I didn't want to be the actually, let me help you with that, right? Didn't want to be that guy. But he has this poor manager pull every jar of bulk tobacco they have. And admittedly, it's only like 8 jars, so it's not too bad. But he's one at a time. He's like, "Oh, what's that one?" So he goes over, pulls it, pops the top. The guy smells it, goes, that's okay. I don't know. What about that one? And goes through all of them. And then he's like, "Okay, well, how do you sell these?" The guy's like, "By the ounce." And I can tell at this point he's getting a little frustrated, because this is during the national championship game, the IU game. I call it the IU game because I'm an IU alum, and we won. In any case, so the guy finally settles on Haunted Bookshop of all blends, which for a new pipe smoker, I was really surprised. But hey, let him do what he's going to do. And he goes, "Okay, I guess I'll take an ounce of that, or 2 ounces of that." I think he said, "What's the normal amount?" And the guy said, "Usually it's 2 ounces." So he goes, "Okay, I'll take 2 ounces of that." So he dumps out 2 ounces into this bag, and he's like weighing it. And the guy's like, "Whoa, that's 2 ounces?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "That looks like way, way too much. Can I get like half of that?" So he has to pour it back out. And he finally finishes the transaction. It takes almost half a quarter of the game, right? And the guy leaves. He's like, he looks at me and he kind of smiles. He goes, "I think I'm on my limit of selling pipe tobacco today." And he goes to his computer. He prints off a sign. "We have sold our limit of pipe tobacco for today. Thank you for understanding," and puts it up on the bulk jars. So had a good laugh about that. But in any case, if you're in Tucson and you require some tobacco products, I'm sure he would help you out. Just don't interrupt the national championship game. And this really is lovely. So if you do go to Muletown this year, this is worth a try. If you're an English person, anyway. Like peaches and cream, stick with peaches and cream. Okay. So this is still in the Cosmos Club. This is a poem by Archibald MacLeish called "The Silence." It's about Mark Van Doren. The flakes are a bit wet, though. I will warn you. The brook beneath the watermill is winter bound, its stones are still. No word at all, no syllable. Once there were two together there, talked in the dim, the humming air, Mark above in his brook chair. Of the brook below, old murmurers, they talked as twilight blinds and blurs, of he of his art and she of hers. Words out of stone she understood, he words from lives, how flesh and blood are spoken, and how the heart construed. Year after year they talked there, now the brook is mute, and winter bound, and Mark no winter knows can sound the silence where his voice is drowned. So Mark Van Doren was a poet, writer, professor at Columbia University. You would probably know him best by the people he influenced, like Jack Kerouac. But he was a talented artist, talented poet and writer. And he is, of course, no longer with us, right? But the point that I think that this poem made for me, was about revelation of God. Stick with me for a second. Uh, Jesus is entering Jerusalem, right? And one second, my hat keeps getting askew. When Jesus first enters Jerusalem, and the followers are all crying out, "Hosanna, Hosanna, glory to King of Kings," right? And the Pharisees are like, "Hey, tell your people to quiet down. The Romans hear them calling you king, then we're going to get the smackdown." And Jesus says, "I tell you that if I tell them to be silent, these very stones would cry out." The nature that God has created, the world, the universe that God has created, reflects God's glory and reveals God's glory eternally and continually. Everything we do is subcreation. Everything we do is created out of the creation that God has made, right? God makes things that make other things. And I mean, this poem is meant to put us in mind of this poet and the chair and the brook, and this idyllic scene where he would think about his art and stuff like that, and the conversation between humanity and nature. And the suggestion is that the brook is silent in winter and he is silent because he's dead, right? And it's kind of drawing that imagery together of man working with nature. But I think, again, it tells something greater. It tells something that is eternally reflective. That the art that the brook speaks about is revelation of God, the stones literally crying out. And even after the poet is dead, in that scenario, in that situation, the brook is still making sounds. The brook is still revealing God's glory. Even in the silent stillness of winter, when the brook is frozen, there is still the revelation of God's glory in God's creation. So when we labor under our own creative artifices, when we whatever that is for you in your area, it's important for us to remember that everything we do is done within God's creation. When we start to think that we are the end all be all, when we start to think that if we don't get this done, it'll never get done and the world will be missing something, we need to step back for a second and say, wait a minute, we are essentially children in a sandbox. We can and we should contribute beautiful things to the world. We should bless others and bless ourselves through the creative process. But at the end of the day, it all points to God, and God is the great creator. And those revelations in that art form is eternal. And that's what we should look to first and foremost. Well, as I mentioned, this flake is rather moist, and I did not give it enough drying time. So I'm going to relight and finish enjoying my pipe. I hope you have a lovely week. As always, happy reading.